believe that, the workforce has babied, employees for doing poor behavior for a long time.
I didn't think I would ever do a fucking podcast. I didn't ever imagine doing that. It made me realize that my purpose is to help others reach the goals and reach their full capacity. And if I can impact somebody's life, that is bigger than money. That is bigger than anything else.
Welcome to Lifestream. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Plains, with my man, Jeremy Applegate. How you doing, Jeremy?
What is going on today? What is going on?
Very great. I'm doing great.
Yeah?
I saw you had a good week this week. I saw you celebrating a lot and a lot of smiling all week long.
Well, it's necessary. Negativity gets you nowhere,
I love it.
right?
Your energy this morning is very strong.
Am I annoying yet?
No. No, it's not. It's not.
Hey, it's interesting that I kind of said annoying because I think that it kind of leads into a topic that we want to talk about today.
What are we going to be talking about?
Right person, wrong role. Did you know 1 out of 5 people are in the wrong spot in an organization?
I totally believe it. I completely believe it. You know how many changes we've made in our organization in the last couple of years that have actually been to our benefit and being proactive, and they were hired by these, we hired them for like a front desk or like a dental assistants, and now some of them are operational managers or they're lead surgical technicians or they've gone into revenue cycle or procurement.
Yeah, that's crazy. But think about this. Like our organization has, 70 people in it right now?
Yeah.
What if an organization has 7,000 people in it? 20% of that workforce is in the wrong spot.
That's a great point you just brought up. I believe a lot of the CEOs a lot of even the hierarchy and the management chain are not able to identify if the person is in the wrong role. So what they do is they basically, say they terminate them or the employee end up leaving themselves.
We've had that word fly around our organization quite often. When our management team gets frustrated with somebody, it's like, oh, get rid of them, find somebody else.
Yep.
That's not the answer.
There's not. We were just talking about this as well, about the difference between managing and coaching or leading. A lot of the positions in power, they tend to manage or basically micromanage a lot more than coaching and development. And I think that's a huge challenge that we face. And that's part of the reason why we're forming Lifestream U in order to help not only develop you personally, but also in your business skills and leadership.
Here's a thought. Maybe it's not them. Maybe it's you as the leader. Maybe you're the problem.
I always, that's why that book is so good by
Yeah.
Jocko, Extreme Ownership.
Yep.
You start identifying that, you're in a Navy SEAL in a combat, and if you're making errors, and your team is dying under fire, you're the problem. You didn't do the right decisions to protect your team.
I think that's a good analogy, and I think that, organizations can use that same thing.
Yep. Another thing that is very, is very tedious now is the fact of employees doing below average work and wanting either higher recognition or more money. They want to be recognized for every little achievement they make, but they're getting paid to do it.
Why do you think that is?
I think I believe that, the workforce has babied, employees for doing poor behavior for a long time.
Okay, that's interesting.
I remember when my grandfather was a welder, and if he did a job and he missed a little, millimeter of where he was welding that stainless steel, what would end up happening? The project manager will tell him he has to redo it all over again. Nowadays, they'll be like, it's okay if you patch it up.
Yes, I agree. And I don't understand when that changed. Like, did it change? Because, in the 70s, when I was a young pup, it was difficult there too because they would kick you to the curb. If you
I believe it started changing after 2000. In
2000.
I think that's when everything started changing a lot. And human capital has become such a necessity, especially after COVID. And all these jobs that people can remotely work from home or they can start an online business. So no one wants to do like those type of jobs anymore.
Well, organizations are really starting to crack down on remote employees too. I think they haven't come out and said it, but I think they really feel like they've done enough data analysis to prove that remote employees are not as productive as being in the
Exactly.
office.
I think when you want to identify if the employee's in the wrong role, you basically got to sit down. You got to have these conversations. You know, you got to be vigilant and evaluating your whole team and the setting every single day. So if you see somebody's coming with low energy, low morale, you know, they're always complaining, they're barely doing their task, I think it's time for you to not let it go on. I mean, remember what I said last week. Fast growth is created by hard conversations. Slow growth is created by easy conversations.
Yeah.
So if you're not in there talking to them and constantly having those hard conversations and saying, hey, you know, you're doing a very bad job. What is going on? Your performance has gone down. When we hired you, you were all cheerful and happy. And now all of a sudden you can barely get your tasks done. Like, what's going on? And then you got to identify if they're in the right role.
And I think that leaders struggle having those uncomfortable conversations because they need to do some self-development on their side as well.
Oh, major. And that's a great point that you just brought up. One of the biggest questions that we're going to ask in the preliminary survey for Lifestream U is, have you done any personal development?
Yep.
Because if you don't know yourself, how can you lead others? So you always got to lead by example.
Can you say that again?
If you can't lead yourself, how can you lead others?
Yeah, good one.
So you always got to lead by example, right? That's one of the biggest quotes in Leadership 101. So if you want to do your team to follow you, my issue is that I've seen over my years is that even though I'm leading by example, I'm showing up every day, I'm hitting the floor hard, I'm on calls, I'm on emails, I'm directing the orchestra, there's still people that don't follow. And is that an issue with me and not communicating the message, or is it an issue with them?
My thought on this real quick is if you've done everything you can to lead them and you feel good about it and you can put your pillow on your head at night, it's on them.
But that falls more on the leader.
I think that, you know, if you lead as much as you possibly can, like if you tried every single possible avenue to make a connection with that team member to get them on the right track, I think that it's on the team member. I mean, you can't be 100% accountable for that because it just doesn't work out that way. Now, the first couple of times, absolutely, you're accountable as leader. But when you really have done your due diligence and you think, and you just aren't getting it, it's on them.
So at that point, you gotta basically make a hard decision and say, you're out.
Yep.
You're fired.
Or
you have another conversation one more time. But we have it with our docs. We have it with our hygienists. We have it with, you know, with our dental assistants, with everyone in the organization. They will only give you a 3 or a 5, sometimes a 7 if it's a good day. But you never see that hardcore, let's go, let's get it, let's crush the day mentality day in and day out.
What did we say? 10% of an organization gives it all every single day?
Yeah. So out of 70 employees, how many employees would that be?
7.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
You remember
Math makes sense.
I always say there's only 5 or 7 people in the organization that really push at the limit. So it's very important that those people are recognized constantly. But back to recognition, you know, we've tried recognizing our team, and sometimes you make huge investments in poor team members. And then, you know, they're all hype. You know, we had a great event with Tom in February. The morale was great during the event. It was great for a week or two after. Now no one is following protocols anymore.
Why? I mean, I think organizations get victimized by that a lot. And I think that the ROI on that is difficult to measure. But what's your opinion? Why do you think that takes place? Is that a leadership thing, or is that I mean, I don't even know, because, you know, we can preach and preach and preach to them, but if they're not,
I have the answer for you.
Oh,
so
go ahead.
When you're hiring and you're going through the hiring process, I believe you got to start asking a lot harder questions. I just don't think that you can be hiring based because you need a body there, or just because they have a little bit of experience in dentistry, and that makes their resume more appealing, which 90% of resumes, a lot of them are inflated.
Yes.
You know, experts in Excel, experts in PowerPoint, but then the next day you tell them to do a PowerPoint and they can't figure it out. So
how do I change the color?
How do I change the color? Correct. So my thing is, like, if you got to make your organization seem like it's so hard to work there from the very beginning, and it's not like the ideal place to work in, Because if you do that during the hiring process, then you're setting expectations that if you're going to be here, it's going to be hard work.
That's interesting that you made that comment.
Which is a different style of interviewing, right?
Yeah, because typically you want to sell your culture. You want to sell your culture to potential team members.
Correct. Well, with Cardone Ventures, for example, one of the biggest things that Natalie does is that she not only do they have a very stringent HR policy, but they make you do the Cardone sales training every single day. They got to do the morning huddles every single day. And if you miss one, it's a write-up. The second time you're fired, period. It's no excuses. But those expectations are set within the time that they're getting hired. So you're not going to go in there and be surprised and be like, oh, I didn't know we had to do a morning huddle, or I didn't know we had to do 15, 30 minutes a day of the Cardone sales training.
Yeah, I think that that could be something different. That could be definitely an approach that could be a win.
I believe our interview process also got to maybe be stacked a little bit. I don't think they should go directly to, like, for example, our director of operations. I think it should be screened a little better. I think there needs to be a manager. And then at that time, once they pass that exam, then they got to meet the doctor, and then they get to meet the director of operations. And that's the final, hurrah on the process.
Yeah, sometimes dental organizations end up doing that backwards.
Yeah, I mean, we hire a lot of times on the fly.
Yeah.
I mean, the interviews take 5 or 10 minutes. There's no way you're going to be able to identify what a candidate is looking for in a 5 or 10 minute interview.
I agree. And I think some of that also is, you can identify a potential solid candidate or a solid team member if they're asking questions back at you too, right?
Yeah, you've always said that. That's a great point. Even with the doctors, when we are interviewing doctors. But, I'm always now a proponent, like, I won't hire a doctor unless they do at least a half a day working interview with me. Because, this is a skilled field. You have to be skilled, and then you're providing a service to a patient. This is not just like a product that we're selling that, you mess it up. You're working with human lives.
And I think that some of that also is creating engagement. How are they going to act around the team? Are they going to be, running to the doctor's office and getting on their cell phone in between patients? Or are they going to be, talking to the front desk and saying, what that patient think of my, of me and my procedure and whatever.
That's a great point you just brought up. Like, that's a question you can be saying in the interview process. In Plains Dental, we don't allow you to be on your cell phone, period. We don't say those type of things when we're interviewing.
That's true.
We talk about, basically, we as an owner, and I know a lot of other companies that do this, we're basically asking them to come work for us when they should be asking us
for a job.
See the difference?
I 100% see the difference.
So it's a totally different aspect. But when you build a quality brand and you build a reputation and you build a great culture, people, even though the job is hard and it's going to be long hours and hard work, they're still going to come and want to be a part of it.
I think that's true. I think that they recognize success, and people flock to success. So if you're a successful organization and, you have retention is there, because that's obviously one of the most important things for these guys is making sure that they have job security, right?
Exactly. And the ones that excel are absolutely going to receive recognition. But you're not going to be recognized every single day for closing out the end of the day. It's absolutely nonsense. You're getting paid to do the job. What?
They don't even get a good job?
They could. I mean,
I'm just messing with you.
But you're creating that weak mentality again.
Correct.
That you continue to baby mediocre performance. You got to get to the point where you're identifying these issues and saying, you know what? You crushed it today. We have $3,000 on the schedule. The day ended with over $10,000. I saw how hard you were working with Mrs. Jones, Mr. Smith, and you deserve to be recognized. How about we go out to lunch next week? Something as easy as that.
Recognition is a tool to be used when an employee goes above and beyond.
That's correct.
Period. Like standard duties, standard responsibilities. I mean, that's just an expectation.
Yeah. I've noticed that you get an employee in, and within the first 4 weeks they're doing phenomenal, and all of a sudden they just start going down in their performance. That is one of our hardest challenges that I've seen. I've seen great employees get ruined by rotten apples also in an office.
Yes, sir.
You know, and all of a sudden you get that person that's in the wrong role, right? That person is in the wrong role. They're unhappy and they bring their misery, and misery brings company. And then all of a sudden, Joanne, that was doing a phenomenal job, has been talking to Sally, and now Joanne is not doing a great job because Sally has brought her down.
Yep, and that's the truth. And that happens everywhere. It's unavoidable, to be honest with you. I think that if that's a golden ticket, if you could ever figure out how to fix that.
And at what point do you clean house?
You know, you got to go back to, I mean, we've talked about this on previous podcasts. What's the financial implications of doing that? You know?
What is the financial implications of keeping them there?
I know. You gotta measure that out.
You got to measure it.
And, you know, like maybe, you know, they came in and it's a conversation where we sit down with Sally and like, listen, this isn't the Sally we hired.
Yeah.
Well, what the heck's going on? I mean, is everything good? Everything good at home? Is everything, you know, whatever the conversation looks like, but we need Sally day one. We don't want Sally day 41. We want Sally day one.
Have those hard conversations.
Yeah. And again, I go back to you go back to self-development all the time, because if you are working to improve your self-development, you're more than likely more comfortable having those conversations with people.
Yeah, you're going to definitely be more confident. You're going to know your value. You're going to know how kind of, you know, privileged they are to be part of the organization, because, you know, there's a lot of organizations that don't even care.
Correct.
And the leaders don't even read a book, or they don't even watch not even 10 minutes a year of an Audible or listen to a book, or read. So when you're in an organization that your leader and your team is trying to get better, that's something you want to be a part of. And if you don't want to be a part of that, then that might not be the right place for you.
I think, and this is just my own opinion, if you were to survey 100 companies in the United States, I would guess that only really one person really truly understood the retention in every single organization. That's the HR person.
Yep.
Nobody else and no other leadership would understand what the retention rate is. That's my own opinion, but prove me wrong. But I doubt it.
That's so true. I mean, our retention used to be almost excellent. I think it was under 5%. But as you grow and you don't have those conversations before, I would be the one having all those conversations when people were kind of flaky or they were about to walk out. And I spoke to them and I understood them. And, you know, I asked them questions like, are you happy in your role? I have these future plans for you, and we're going to be making some shifts within the company or the office. And, you know, 90% of the time they'll be like, thank you for taking the time and having these conversations. I feel a lot of the leaders or the managers now, they don't want to have those conversations. They're very quick to assume, let's fire them, let's get somebody else, let's replace them. But what is the average cost of replacing an employee? It's over $25,000 to $30,000 to replace one employee.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
So it's a lot of time and energy and resources wasted. And maybe all you needed to do was have a good conversation with them and give them some recommendations.
I reflect on a conversation that you had with one of our leaders this week. That person came in and you guys were having to talk about one of their team members, and they were like, well, you know, I'm just going to get rid of him. He's like, and you were like, wait a minute. Well, here's a concept. How about training them?
Yeah, training them, coaching them, developing them. Look at basketball players. Look at in baseball, you got pitching managers, you got coaches, you got the first base, the third base coach. You got a team of people that are helping develop these players. Barry Bonds didn't become Barry Bonds. Well, he did some steroids, but that's a bad example. Derek Jeter didn't become Derek Jeter by not practicing and working hard and being coached and taking a lot of time and discipline into his career.
Correct. They feel like a 2-minute conversation is the coaching that was required, and that's all they're going to spend with them. And if they don't get it in 2 minutes, then, you know, we're off to the next Derek Jeter.
Exactly. Same thing with basketball. Yep. You know, I was talking to Dr. Goodman because he's a big basketball fanatic, and I made a correlation with him, like, you know, with the Implants for All Institute, we're basically, you know, a team of coaches that are going to help develop the players, like, and identify if those players can be in those roles of doing those full arches and single implants.
You know, we really have built a strong mentor development coach business on Implants for All Institute and Lifestream you, because we really identified that's what's missing, in all of this, and kudos to you on that.
Thank you. A lot of consultants, they just give advice, but they really don't train you or coach you or give you examples on how to lead. Everything's very negative for the majority of the time. There's also training centers, which are sales trainers, like Scheduling Institute. That's more sales, teaching you sales and customer service. But what we're doing is very, very different. It's very hands-on with the team and hands-on with the doctor. And we're going to be teaching them how to actually lead for success. So if one day we're not around, they have all the tools necessary to 10x their business.
And that's true, because even at this point, we are constantly self-developing and self-improving, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're reading, we're watching podcasts, we're listening to audibles, we're doing all that stuff. And you're a beast at that. I'm not as great as, I'm not nearly even close to where you are at your level, but I mean, you understand the value, and I think it's impacted you, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's taught me a lot about the strengths you need, how disciplined you need to be, how committed you need to be. There's days that I don't want to wake up. There's days that I absolutely don't want to wake up and go to work. Yesterday was one of those days. I was tired, I was exhausted, I had a migraine, but guess what? I had to do it.
You had to do it.
I had to do it. There's no other choice. I couldn't call, Dr. Smith and say, hey, Dr. Smith, take over my day for me. That just doesn't happen. And people got to start being realistic. And you got a lot of these people that are extremely soft. They have a little migraine. They got a little headache. And now they can't come into work. Like, come on, give me a break. Let's toughen up.
Right. I mean, I want to piggyback off that, but I really can't, because you just knocked it out of the park. I mean, that's true. Like, they have an irresponsible weekend.
And maybe I'm just a different, a different animal of some sort from outer space. But I feel like I have a commitment to my patients. I have a commitment to my team. If I don't go, the team loses their hours. We can't take care of the patients. The patients have probably prior arrangements. Like, I had a patient yesterday that she's had to reschedule her flight 2 times because the lab couldn't get the prosthesis to me on time. You think I can tell that lady tomorrow, hey, I got to reschedule you again? That's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. But there's people that have no problem doing that.
Yep.
And where's the morale? Where's the commitment to your career?
Yep. Great question.
Right?
That's a question for another podcast.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys.